Welcome to the Tone Lounge Podcast, the definitive music industry and gear podcast with Jonathan Gilmet and Frank Fleckenstein.
Good morning and welcome, guys. This is the Tone Lounge Podcast, episode number 9. We're just one episode away from the glorious 10. Today with me, as always, my good buddy Jonathan Gilmet, live from Belgium, and also with us today as our guest, live from Oslo, Eirik from Livingroom Gear Demos. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. So you just said beforehand that you were in kind of a weather chaos right now in Oslo.
Yeah, it's been super cold here for a long time, which is common. But then all of a sudden, just over the night, it became super mild, very warm. So there's water everywhere. I couldn't drive because it's so slippery, and the subway didn't go all the way to my studio. So I've been walking through a lot of snow. I'm completely wet, but I'm doing good. But yeah, it was a bit of a struggle this morning.
Oh shit!
It's a Monday.
Yeah, we had the same thing. Going on here. We had snow, which is very unusual for Cologne. That it snows and it actually stays. Normally, it just turns right to water.
Oh.
And we had like -8 or something, like 2 or 3 days ago, and now, +10 and rain. So it's like kind of the same soup, so to speak.
Yeah, it's the same thing over here. My kids missed school all of last week because there was this much snow. So Belgians are not used to snow, so they were freaking out. I'm from Canada, so it's like snow. Come on, it's the only time you shut down the schools when you walk outside and you freeze to death like in 2 seconds. Then they go, yeah, it's a snow day. Kids don't have to go. But over here, man, they were freaking out. So yesterday there was still some snow, and I'm looking at my emails, going like, are the kids going to school tomorrow? Like, what's going on? I wake up this morning, it is pouring rain, like typical Belgian weather. I'm like, nah, kids are going to school. I can do the podcast without having to worry that, they're sneaking behind me like, Dad, can I have peanut butter sandwiches? I swear.
So what we do here, usually we start with a little news section, and I've been picking out a lot of things because next week we're actually going to do a NAMM dedicated episode, and we're going to look at some of the stuff that is coming out at NAMM. Although saying that coming out at NAMM, it feels like so much stuff is already out. If I look at the stream of the past couple of days, it's like, why would you even wait for NAMM anymore? It's like all the major companies already released what's coming at NAMM. So it's kind of pointless. Anyways, there are a few things that we definitely can take a look at. So let me just share my screen with you guys. And let me know if you can see that. Might be blurry in the beginning, but then you might be able to see the screen. You guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. One thing that's not NAMM related, which I find funny. So I don't know if you heard about that, but apparently the Smashing Pumpkins are looking for a new guitar player, and they said that everybody can apply. And when they said everybody, they meant everybody. And it seems like they have received over 10,000 submissions for a new guitar player, and they have 8 people full time reviewing them. So I don't know if one of you was good at math, but I really want to find out how many submissions these guys can do in one day and when they will be ready.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that they have some people doing it for them, actually, because I was wondering that. But they have 8 people, you said, full time reviewing them. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'm really bad at math, so I can't help you at all with figuring out how long that will take. But they have a rather big job.
Yeah, definitely looks like it. Yeah. It's actually, the band has received over 10,000 submissions for the position of additional guitarist. Currently, there are 8 people working full-time to review each and every one. Which is, actually, full disclosure, I was thinking about sending in a submission myself, but then I was listening to a couple of songs and I remembered that I'm not the biggest fan of this band. So, and then I said, well, maybe I'm not going to apply. Maybe not the best idea. But yeah, so Smashing Pumpkins. Then there's a lot of NAMM related stuff here. I'm still going strong with my kind of love, hate, not hate, but love, like doubt relationship with Gibson. So on one end, they announced that they're going to return to the amp market with these Falcon amps that are obviously done by Mesa Boogie since they acquired Mesa Boogie. And I think that's really cool. I think these things, they look really cool, and if Mesa Boogie does them, they probably are solid, and I'm looking forward to see how they sound. Not so sure if what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think they look really cool. I haven't heard them yet. I've just seen some photos, and I did actually record an album in Canada once, and I ended up using a Gibson amp mostly for that record. And that sounded awesome. I've no idea if that's anything close to those new ones, but I think they look really cool. And like my experience with Gibson amps, it's pretty solid actually. I've tried a few, so I would be interested in trying those actually.
Yeah, I'd be interested too. I have a 1965 Gibson GA15 RVT. It's called the Gibson Explorer. I bought this thing for like $450 Canadian, so it's worth even less here in Europe.
Yeah, cool.
But this amp is more like, a lot of people were saying online that it was more like a Vox AC15, but as far as I'm concerned, it's more like a Princeton. Doesn't have a whole lot of volume, but when you crank it up, if you have like a really nice high output humbuckers, it gets like that really sweet Fender-ish type of Fender Princeton kind of tone, and a lot of people dog this particular model. So when it comes to Gibson, there's some of them that are really expensive, and some of them are really sought out by people. But then you got the others that are kind of like the ugly dog or ugly duckling from the line. So I think that they might be positioning themselves to come up with like the fan favorites first, and maybe then come out with other ones that they think is worth reviving. But since it's done by Mesa, which is a company I also really enjoy, like I really love their amps, I'm just wondering if it's going to be like a hybrid of what Mesa does with just like the aesthetic of a Gibson, or if they're really going to go for what the original circuit was. So I'm expecting like people to bitch about that eventually, just because, if they are not authentic to like the old circuits, people are going to be like, I have an original one. It sounds like 10,000 times better than these new reissue ones. So I'm kind of curious about people's reaction once they get to compare the old ones and the new ones.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What I think is nice though, I think the pricing is pretty okay for that kind of amp. So they're apparently they're priced $14.99 for the 5 or for the 10 watt. No, sorry, 12 watt, and then the 20 watt is $17.99. Considering that these are like faithful recreations, and that at least that's what the news article says, and they're made in the US. I think that's pretty decent. So $14.99 and $17.99 in comparison to, and that's where I get to the doubt part. You can also buy new Gibson pickups, which are like super awesome and great, and they come in a leather case for $1,000.
Oh, I always wanted a leather case for my pickups, since they're already in my guitars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't get it.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
But
That's
I
really
saw a
a great
YouTube
question.
video yesterday. I don't know if it was Andy from the Guitar Geek. I think it was him, but he was saying like this one here is supposed to be like a faithful recreation. So what about all the other faithful recreations they've made in years past?
Yeah.
Are those less faithful now? Like, if I want to get like the 59, humbucker PAF sound, do I have to buy these ones, or can I buy the ones from last year or the year before or the year before that? Where does it stop? Is there really a high demand for this type of circuit, not circuit, but this type of design? It's kind of weird, especially for the price point.
It is weird. Yeah.
It's funny. And the other thing is that, so apparently they're limited to 1,000 units, which is like, okay, so they're limited to 1,000 units. But also I've read somewhere that they're already sold out. So apparently there are 1,000 people in the world that said, wow, 2 faithfully recreated PAF Gibson humbuckers in a leather case for $1,000. Take my money. Apparently, there are people who actually like to do that stuff. My guess is we're going to see a lot of them on Reverb afterwards for like twice the price.
Yes, exactly.
For $1 more. Nice.
I actually often like Gibson guitars, but I'm not a huge fan of their pickups. I usually swap them out like instantly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I would never buy this for many reasons.
No, not at this price point. No, thank you.
Nope.
I get it. Yeah, I think if you wanted like something that's close to this like classic, like super bell style PAF sound, there are so many alternatives out there, and for way less money. That this is this is some weird thing for people that who are like, really $1,000? Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
you have my money.
My main concern with this is how can you confirm if it is authentic, right? It's like if you read up on those pickups, I'm not like a super pickup nerd, but if you read up on them, you get to find out that oftentimes they were wound by hand, and sometimes on the Monday and the Wednesday and the Friday, they're not wound exactly the same, because sometimes people would go take their break and the pickup would be underwound or overwound. So how can you make is it faithful to one set of pickups, or is it faithful to the whole line of pickups that were made that year? And when you know that, it's like marketing talk when you think about it, because they're saying it's faithful. Yeah, but you have DiMarzio and Seymour Duncan who are doing their own versions of faithful, but they're basing it on their own guitars or stuff like that, right? So at the end of the day, when you consider it, it's like $9.99 for a set of pickups. Do you leave them in the leather case and just show to your friends, say, hey man, these are the best sounding pickups, and they're going to be like, have you ever plugged them in? Are you crazy? You're out of your mind. I paid $1,000 for these. I'm not going to put them in my guitar. Like, why would you buy that unless you're a dentist or a lawyer and you have like, a lot of disposable income? I can't see regular gigging musicians buying this kind of thing. It makes no sense.
But
it's
that's
out of
probably
touch.
what it is. It is like a collector thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and instead of saying like it's mint in the box, you say it's mint in the leather case. That's the only difference. It's I have these Gibson pickups, and they're mint in the leather case.
But you
It's
also have to
Spinal
keep
Tap,
the
man.
leather box mint.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the leather mint box is still in the box. Quite literally
Exactly.
never been opened.
exactly. And I actually put it in a vacuum so it stays fresh.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Amazing.
Pointless.
One other thing that I found that I think was interesting was this article where they talked to Dave Ellefson from Megadeth, And I don't tend to agree with Lars Ulrich on a lot of things that he says, but I agree with him on two things that he ever said. One thing is that the documentary they did a couple of years ago, Some Kind of Monster, was probably a mistake. That's what he said, and I agree with him, because it definitely, to me, I was watching it, it definitely looked like a mistake. And the other thing is, he was 100% right about Napster, and I also tend to agree with him in a sense where when I discovered Napster, and that's a long time ago, and I was still like looking forward to, cool, you know, I'm in this band and we're making some decent money and maybe we can continue this and whatnot. And then I see people on their computers, hey, look, I'm just downloading all that stuff. And I'm like, the fuck are you doing? You know, it's like, you're destroying my dream right in front of my eyes. And yeah, so back then I looked at that and I was analyzing it, and that was even before I saw that Lars Ulrich was suing Napster. But I was like, okay, this is going to change things. This is going to shake things up. And I don't know if in a good way or in a bad way, but if we look at the current situation with Spotify and whatnot, then most likely in a bad way.
Yep. Like, I used Napster when it came out. Not a lot, but just for some few songs. And I couldn't really see it, like how it would end up being a problem back then. I was probably too young and stupid. I was really stupid when I was young.
So was I.
We all were.
Yeah. But I totally agree with him, of course. Like, but I think if Napster didn't do it, it would have been someone else later. So it would have happened anyways. But I think it's really sad. Like, in many ways, like the music industry, music to me is like, I just miss the old days so much. It feels kind of dead. Like, I don't look forward to albums anymore because it's just there. And maybe I listen once and I'm not digging it the first time. I don't have anything invested into it, so I just move on. But if I bought a CD, like, I spent some time with that record and I learned how to like it, and I was much more connected with the bands. To me now, it's like I've lost that completely. And I think that is really sad. And it's also one of the reasons why I'm not that active as a musician anymore. It's probably why I ended up doing YouTube, because, something is gone there, sadly.
Yeah. Napster was one of those things. Like, I remember back in the day, I had like really shitty internet connection, like 14.4K, and it took me 3 days to download one song. It was supposed to be like Korn and Slipknot, and when I got the song, it was like someone else's song that they wanted to promote, and I was so fucking pissed, man. Like, 3 days, like I couldn't even receive phone calls or I would lose my connection, right? That was the first and only time I used Napster, and then I went like, enough. I'm still buying albums. And personally, like, I still believe in purchasing the albums, but people can do whatever the hell they want. But me personally, I still go, like, when I was in Canada, we had the Walmarts and they had these bins where you could buy albums for like $2.
Yeah.
So I would grab like 10, 15 of them. And my wife's like, are you like serious? You're buying this? I'm like, yeah, I am buying this because I still give a shit about like supporting the bands, and I want to read the liner notes, and I want to see who they're thanking because they contributed to, like, that was my thing when I was a kid. I used to love doing that. And now it's like you were mentioning, Eirik, it's like you listen to a song on Spotify or you download a song, and if it doesn't grab you right away, you move on. You're like, okay, this person is invested in creating a song, but does it move me? Does it affect me in some way? And it seems like there's not the same concerted effort on the part of musicians to make better music, because what they're trying to do now is just grab your attention really quickly and make really poppy music. God knows how we got there. I really don't know, but I haven't enjoyed music, like listening to music, in at least like 10 years. I lost complete interest. My kids ask me to put on the radio, and when I do, I listen to a song, I've never heard it, and I can tell you that I can sing the chorus because it's so childish in its composition that I can sing it like right away. I know exactly where they're going, and my kids are like, "You know this song?" I'm like, "No, never heard it," but it's so stupid that a monkey could sing this thing, and it pisses them off. And I'm like, it's not like my music was better. Is that your music, your generation should have better music. You have like amazing musicians right now. You see these kids who can play music. They're really talented. Why aren't those kids making their own music? Well, they're not. It's better to be on YouTube playing other people's music that is really basic, but just, going on and doing all this flashy stuff, because that's how now they get recognized as musicians. There was a time where you didn't need to be that great of a musician to write really good songs. So everything's like backwards in music. That's why I don't even listen to music anymore. My kids are like, "Your dad, you play guitar and you don't listen to music anymore?" No, it's just I don't. It sucks. It sucks growing up and being older and seeing the music and hearing the formula sometimes. Like, I don't know if it happens with you guys, but I know exactly, like, those are the 4 chords they're going to do. And then I start singing other songs that are well known that use the exact same chord progression.
Yeah.
And my kids are like so discouraged. Like, "Oh, Dad, stop it." I was like, "Sorry, but it's all the same music to me. It all sounds the same." Oh, I don't know. That's my spiel on the current affairs of music. I'm still waiting for the next The Mars Volta or Queens of the Stone Age. Like, where's that group of like 18-year-olds that are coming in and they're like throwing fuck yous at everyone going, "We don't care about the system. We don't care about the norms. Here's some real punk music." Where is it?
But the thing is for me that I still find those bands from time to
you?
time. Yeah. But still I feel less invested in everything because of how things work. I can probably work around that and be more active with buying vinyls and buying their merch, and I should do that. But it's like the market is forcing me to do something else, which makes me a bit lazy. But I do still find good bands, absolutely. But yeah, I never cared too much about like pop music or the music that you hear on radio anyways. I've always been on like the hunt for finding the music myself, and I can find it still, but yeah, I don't care as much. It's also probably because I'm older, and I think I've maybe filled up the bank a bit with all the music that I listened to from when I was 10 to 25, and now I'm just like recycling that music a lot as well.
Yeah.
I totally get that. I still find myself listening to, like, this morning. I was I was heading out with my son, and whatever music I hear, he seems to like. And it's very, very different music. Sometimes it's John Mayer, which used to drive me crazy when he was like 1 year old or something. If we didn't listen to John Mayer in the car, he was like, and then you put on John Mayer and he like, okay, silence. Like, oh, fuck's sake, I'm gonna have to listen to John Mayer for the end of time until the end of times. But this morning, he was fine with Catatonia. So
nice.
Right on.
I'm pretty okay with that. But that's the for me, I am blessed / cursed with very analytic ears, which is a blessing if you work with audio and you try to analyze and mix and correct and whatnot. Then it's a blessing. It's an absolute curse if you want to listen and enjoy music, because every little imperfection gets to you and you stop enjoying that maybe somebody is putting out something absolutely amazing there. And it sometimes it really takes an artist that is such overwhelmingly different or unique that I kind of shut down this analytic part of myself. I'm like, oh, okay, this person takes me places. The fun part is it has usually nothing to do with the music that I used to listen to. It has nothing to do with rock, metal, stoner, or all these things. It's usually something completely different. Like, I don't know if you guys know. Have you ever heard of Carla Morrison?
Nope.
Nope. Mexican artist.
Nope.
Sings only in Spanish, but has a voice and has a way to draw you into her compositions. That was the first time in like years that I was able to completely shut down all the theoretical nerd analytic part with me, and I was like, amazing. I can relax, I can go to other places, I can be somewhere else for the moment. It's very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah. So you almost halfway answered the first question that I actually had towards you, Eirik, where what exactly made you go into being a content creator in the first place? And you said, maybe this like kind of fade in like being a musician and aspiring to make music and go places and whatnot. Said maybe that's why you're on YouTube now, but is that like the entire reason, or was there another thing? Maybe you were looking at the landscape and you saw like, oh, maybe there's something missing. We need someone who does things a different way. Maybe you saw a niche.
Yeah, I think there are a few reasons. And I think, first of all, I was really into gear back then. And I also I was really fascinated by guitar YouTube content creators. I was watching that a lot, and I was thinking if that was something that I could do. And I've never been a very technical guitar player. I'm not there to blow anyone away with my playing. So I was unsure if I could do that, because I couldn't just film myself and play something awesome. Mm-hmm. But I think the segue for me was demonstrating gear. And I was interested in filming and playing guitar and gear. So everything there was sort of part of me trying to get into YouTube. And I got a Klon Centaur clone from someone locally. And there was a lot of talk about that pedal, because this was like early Centaur clone times. And a lot of people wanted to see a video of that. So that was like the first video that I made. And I also think a big reason to why I kept doing it was because I had been playing in bands for a long time. And when you do that, you spend a lot of time doing it, and you get maybe something back. Like every now and then you get something back. And with YouTube, it was like instant. You got comments, you got views, positive comments and negative comments, but you got something back from being creative. And I think that was the thing that kept me going, sort of. That it was a bit more like instant. Because I think with music, I was probably chasing that getting something back a bit too much instead of just enjoying it. If I started a band now, I would just do it because I wanted to do it. I wouldn't care about like anything, what people, or maybe I would probably care about positive feedback if I got that. But like being in bands back then, it was always like, yeah, we need to get a record deal, and we didn't like enjoy the process at all. But with YouTube, at least back then, it was very like instant. You did a day's work and you got a lot back for that. Yeah. So it's a mix of reasons why I got into it, but a lot of it was gear and like just YouTube, like the community, getting something back from being creative, I guess.
Okay.
Do you find, Eirik, that doing YouTube has become like a creative outlet for you? Because I've noticed, I'm asking this because I've noticed, I've been following your channel for a really long time, right? So I remember the days where we wouldn't see you. You were just filming the guitar and the pedal and you weren't talking. And then I saw the progression from you going from there and then starting to experiment with like camera zooms and stuff like that. And I saw you go into like really having some really more complex video editing and video techniques. So is this more of a like now creative thing for you, mixing audio and video?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I just see myself now that I'm less interested in guitar gear, which I think I've been on YouTube for 10 years. I worked in guitar stores. At some point you've seen a lot of guitar gear. So for me, the only way to survive on YouTube is the creative part, making stuff.
Okay.
So I do, for example, I do less videos now. I do less demos. I just basically try to come up with ideas that sort of like gets me into it again. And of course, guitar gear is often a part of that. But it's for me now, it's more about being creative and making stuff. And then, of course, it's a guitar channel, so I need to have music and guitar in there to be able to have people watch it. But yeah, it's definitely the creative part and filming. I really love filming. So what I do now is, I would say, 40-50% of my job is YouTube, and the rest is as a cinematographer. So I do filming. I do like commercials and interviews and corporate stuff here in Oslo. So I also really like the filming part of it, and I learned that through YouTube, basically.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's interesting. But it's funny you say that. I kind of went into the same direction. I started YouTube at some point. I wasn't very consistent, so at some point the whole thing obviously died down a little bit. But because of this like aspiration to try to make the YouTube content better and to make the film quality, like the video quality better and the editing quality and whatnot, at some point I would go into there was this band. Hey, can you take pictures of us? It seems like you have a good eye for like aesthetics. And then I did a photo shoot with that band. And then another band came around. It's like, hey, can you help us to shoot a video and whatnot? And then I helped these guys. So kind of in the same direction. I'm not doing it now as a job, sadly, or maybe not entirely sadly, because I also think that there might be clients that are difficult to deal with, depending on what they want.
Oh,
but yeah. like everywhere. How do you think that, you said you're doing YouTube for 10 years now? How do you think YouTube has changed? I mean, obviously you have changed. You said you are less interested in guitar gear. I can double on that, because it's the same thing. I've been working in this industry, guitar gear related, for 26 years now. So obviously, at some point you're like, NAMM comes around and they're coming out with all these things, and you're like, yeah, okay. Yeah. You're not like, wow, NAMM, let's go. But just looking at YouTube, how do you think YouTube has changed, especially for content creators around gear in the past 10 years, apart from the fact that it has been more dense because there's more people around than ever, but also not all of these really, they make it to the top, if there is a top, if we can speak about something that's called the top.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing that you can see is that, like, just going back maybe 5 years, maybe even more, I could get a pedal and I could make a demo of it, and I would get 30,000 views pretty like easily. That is not happening anymore. Part of that is because there are more people doing those demos, and there are more pedals now than back then. But it seems like people, they want something more from the videos. They do check out like technical demos, but people seem to be more into like thematic stuff. Maybe that pedal put into a context, and that's probably the thing that I'm struggling the most with, because I still want to do some gear that is sent to me. I need to do that to earn money, but I don't want to just make a regular demo, because then I know that they're paying a rather high price for it, and I might get 2,000 views. Of course, they can use that video forever to showcase how that pedal sounds, but I'm not like, I can't really say that I'm finding a new audience for them anymore, because that's something that I could like argue before when I was arguing for my price. So it's trying to put that gear into a context that is genuine, and that it's really fun, but also really hard sometimes, because you basically need to have a completely new idea every time, and that is really hard. So it feels now that us YouTubers, we are chasing the viewers a lot harder than before, and I think that's why you see a lot of YouTubers quit, like not only guitar YouTubers, but just a lot of YouTubers are completely burned out by doing it for a long time. I think YouTube has changed. Like, people talk about the algorithm all the time. I think that has changed, but also people who watch YouTube change. It's not easy to say whose fault it is, or if it's like necessarily a negative thing. Things just change, which can be a bit. It's a bit hard when it's your job to always change and always find the thing that is working. So, but at least what I see, the thing that seems to be the trend is like guitar gear put into a context with people that they like to watch, and if they're good at playing guitar, that's also a huge plus. You see like Red Shull, Rick Beato, that pedal show, they're doing really good because they have likable people who plays really well, and they're able to put the gear into a context. Which me as a consumer of videos, I'm like that also. Like I might check out a demo of some pedals if I'm really like interested, but usually I'm going for the videos where there's a context and there's a theme around the gear. Usually,
yeah, that's what I see. That's what I see a lot as well, and it kind of goes along with something that. So a friend of mine is a media science person. He never studied it, but he got into it at some point, and now he's really good at it. And he's actually consulting for companies that want to be good in the media game. And he said to me at some point when he was looking at like guitar YouTube, and he was looking at all the different content. At some point in the conversation, he told me, "You know what I found out about all that stuff that you are working with and that you're looking at?" And I said, "Oh, tell me." And he said, "The educational stuff where gear is put into has a longer life, a longer, like cycle than somebody just putting something in there and say, that's the XYZ and it does that, and here's a sound, and here's my clean tone." And so apparently, yeah, you're right. Educational material has a longer cycle, longer period, because it engages in a different way. You're like, you're putting 4 delays, and what's the best 80s style delay? And then people stick to the end because like, oh, I really want to know which is the best 80s style delay.
Yeah,
and then
right.
you put products in there. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I agree. And we have scientific proof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that. And I've noticed also, Eirik, that you've done some videos where you purchase gear and you go after the tone of like famous guitar players that use the gear, like let's say Queen of the Stone Age. So you're buying like the 1 amp and then you're trying it out and you're seeing if you can replicate. Do you find that those kind of videos do really well on your channel compared to doing just like a straight up demo?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that is probably the types of videos that I enjoy the most doing as well. And there are so many factors to it. I think they enjoy it because it's interesting. They can tell that I'm really into it. And it's also really difficult with the YouTube guitar audience with like placing products that has been sent to me on the channel, which is very common on like every other tech channel or YouTube channel, but people are not a huge fan of that in the guitar community. I try to be very open about it, like this one is placed on the channel, I'm getting paid for it, and a lot of people are going like, nah, not that interested then. But with those videos, I'm buying everything myself, so it seems more genuine, and maybe it is as well. So yeah, those videos are very popular, and it's something that I like to watch myself as well.
Yeah.
I like tone chasing videos. I just find them super interesting, and it's never that I necessarily need to know how to make that sound, because I wouldn't use it necessarily myself, but I've been able to do it once and I can move on, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like a challenge element to it, right? So I'm wondering, do you think it's possible for YouTube demos to kind of go with, like you were mentioning earlier, themes? Like, let's say, I don't know, a company sends you a pedal and they give you, free range to do whatever you want with it. Would you ever be inclined to say, okay, they sent me a Klon type pedal, let's see if I can replicate like the top 5 songs that use a Klon? Do you think a company would go with that, or they would go like, nah, I just want you to twist the knobs and show what it does?
Oh yeah, I've done that a lot of time. I bet I've even done exactly the video that you mentioned as an example.
I was just coming up with it.
Very possible.
Yeah. A lot of them are into that. I think there was a transition a few years back that most companies would be, we just want a demo. But now most of them are really tuned into what works on YouTube, and they would even suggest that.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've done a lot, but it's a bit different from pedal to pedal, or with some gear it works. But for example, a lot of the videos that I've done when I bought stuff, it's usually old crappy gear, and it's a bit difficult to insert like a sponsored pedal into that video. But sometimes like with the Queens of the Stone Age, it could be me buying an old Ampeg amp, but I know that they used a Boss pedal to get that sound, and then I've talked to Boss and they've sent a pedal and they've sponsored the video. So it's absolutely possible to combine those two worlds. But I do in most cases feel most free to do whatever I want when I don't have any brand put into the videos. The best thing for me is really to make the videos that I want to do, and maybe if I need to get paid for, like, I buy stuff for those videos, to not lose money, I try to get a sponsor that is just something completely different, like a website thing, Squarespace or Skillshare or whatever. Then I think people can see the content as really genuine, and they can watch the ad for Squarespace if they want to, and they know that this doesn't have anything to do with the tone he's ending up with. It's just him getting paid. So yeah, that's a long answer to that, but I definitely do the thing that you talked about. But right now, I feel that like it is a bit difficult because I've done it too much. So I'm not sure how I could come up with any good ideas like that anymore because I've done it a lot, actually.
Okay.
Last week we had Andy, the guitar geek, on the podcast, and we were talking quite a bit about the mental health aspect of being a content creator, and I would like to know how you deal with that topic specifically because I mean, a lot of people don't want to admit it, but hurtful and non-constructive comments on the videos can affect people, and they actually do affect people. And I've seen people be like falling below heavily because they don't know how to deal with it, or they can't deal with it. So and since you have a 10-year history with YouTube, I would like to know how you deal with it usually. If you see, do you ignore them or do you engage with them?
I think the thing on YouTube that affects me the most is not the comments, but the constant struggle of being relevant on YouTube. That's the thing that gets to me. But for example, I'm on a 3-month suspension from being monetized on YouTube right now, and I don't even know why.
What?
Yeah, like I think it's close to 3 months now that my channel was demonetized, which means there are no ads on my channel right now, and that is around like 40% of my income just gone in a day. So stuff like that gets to me, and trying to deal with YouTube, getting an explanation to why this happened. It's not like I have a very controversial channel at all. It's guitar gear. And yeah, getting views and stuff, that's the thing that gets to me. And the comments, of course, can be really annoying, but it's usually, I deal with it okay when YouTube in general is okay for me. When YouTube is stressful for me, I get super pissed off about the comments as well.
Okay.
And I don't care too much about the comments that are like, you're ugly and stuff like that, but it's I don't know how to describe it even, but it's just like people complaining over stuff that's my choice. I made this video just the way I wanted it to be. So don't come here and complain. Go make your own video. That's when I get like super pissed off, and I sometimes right back, and I can be pretty angry and maybe not too nice sometimes.
But I mean, you have a right to be, right? People are not forced to sit there and watch your videos. They clicked on the video, right? And if they're not happy with it, like, let's say we met in person, we didn't know each other, and I look at you and I say, Eirik, I don't like your sweater.
Yeah.
You would look at me and say, fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And what could I do about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, look, dude, you should have put on proper clothing if you're going to go in public. You would grab me by the scruff and go, say, are you okay? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But on your YouTube channel, I feel like that's what it is too. If some schmuck comes along and makes a comment that's really stupid, my preferred way of doing it is just hiding the user from the channel. That way I don't have to fucking deal with them anymore. I'm like, okay, you're just a dumbass. I can tell by the way you're phrasing your statement that you're not looking to have a normal debate. You want to piss me off. You want me to engage negatively with you. And I just hide them. But sometimes I get the one person that just writes the most outlandish, stupid thing.
Yeah.
And then instead of getting like super angry about it, I just try to be witty. And my wife says, you shouldn't even bother. I'm like, no. I'm tearing this guy a new asshole. Yeah. Just give me a second. Right? And I go in there and I'm like, if we met, dude, you would not talk to me like that. So I'm going to let you know these are my terms. It's my channel. I do what I want. If you don't like it and everyone just bails out and I lose all my subscribers, I will not cry. I'll move on. I'll find something else.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for fun. I'm doing this for the creativity. If I can get a little bit of kickback in terms of money so I can keep supporting what I do, great. But for me, just like you, Eirik, this is a creative outlet. I'm trying to have fun, but I'm also trying to give back to people. This is not like self-gratification. I'm not doing it just for me. I'm doing it because I want people to hear the gear, get a good sense of what it does. But you always have the person that comes in, they're like, why do you play these overpriced guitars? Why do you play these overpriced amps? I'm sorry. That's what I play. Why do you feel so like crushed by the idea that someone would have better gear than you? It happens. I played shit gear forever.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to like soup it up. Just, no, it's for me. I'm not playing these amps for other people. I'm doing it for myself. But you always have the one person saying, you know, you're playing overpriced guitars. And then when you play cheap guitars, you got some schmuck coming in saying, why are you playing a Squire?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not a real guitar. It's like, so if you try to please everyone, you'll please nobody.
No.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and sometimes some comments, probably the comments that gets to me are things that I know I can improve on. Then I need to like work on myself a bit because, okay, if this is like the fifth person telling me that my guitar tone is always a bit too dark, then I probably should try to look into that. And those comments can really piss me off as well, but it's because I know there's something there.
Yeah. They hit a nerve.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had that when I started out. Like, I had to talk, and I would script everything so it would look like Dawn of the Dead, like, hi, welcome to the channel. And I had some people call me out on it. I was so angry. I was like, I'm trying. But you know, you're talking to a damn camera. What is natural about that? It's like if you saw a guy, some dude randomly talking to a banana, you'd be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? But that's what we're doing. We're talking to an inanimate thing in front of us, pretending that we're having a conversation, which is not natural. But eventually you end up getting it. For me, it took 480 something videos to actually start to get somewhat comfortable in front of the camera. But you always have someone coming in and they always have something. You're not perfect enough and they'll let you know. And that's when it hurts. It's when it's like, hey, you got sausage fingers. I'm not going to go like cut them off and get some extensions just to get really nice, like Avon lady fingers for you. It's like, that's what I got. I'm going to work with it, you know? So some comments like that are irrelevant, but it's when they really hit the nail on the head and you're in one of those moods where you're like, don't fuck with me today. Yeah. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, son of a bitch. Yeah. It's like, what are you supposed to do? Like, I got one video where I'm doing like using the AC-15 with an ABY pedal, but I'm standing so close to the camera. I have people saying, whoa, buddy, back off. You're way too close to the camera. It's filmed. I can't tell myself on camera to back the fuck off. Yeah. I recorded it that way. So yeah, you're stuck looking at my big ugly face in the camera. I mean, it's like a learning experience. Or one video I made where like I was looking at how heavy an amp was. So I say 12 pounds, but it's actually 12 kilograms, which is not the same thing. Yeah. You wouldn't believe how many people still write to me saying, idiot, it's 12 kilograms, not 12 pounds. I made that video 4 years ago. I still get that comment.
There's so many old videos that gets comments like that, and I usually just comment to them that okay, I will reshoot the video, and I will send it to you, just you. And can you give me the email address, and I will send it to you as soon as it's done. I'm working on it
video
now.
request.
This is super weird. What I did for quite some time, and I completely stopped doing, at some point, and I don't know how it happened, but people kind of got wind that I have an extensive history in this industry as far as like working at retailers, working with distributors, and working with brands directly, and I was involved in the development of some products as well, that they kind of used my channel as like a consulting space where I was doing a video, and then they were like asking me questions, like if it was a guy standing in a fucking store, he was like, so what can I do with these outputs? And are the other ones capable of transporting symmetric signal as well? And how many effects can I apply on this? I'm like, dude, every manufacturer has a website. So you can go there and it has all the answers. No, but you're watching the video and it's like, well, I can as well just ask the guy, He has time. Sure. Yeah. And at some point I stopped doing that because it was like so time consuming. And then I saw it happening on 4-year-old videos. So I was like, no way. No chance.
Yeah, you're like...
I often get questions about gear, and sometimes it's almost like, hey, can you pick out everything for a new rig for me? Guitar, cables, pedals, and amps. And I really want to be a nice guy, but I'm like, I don't have time to do this. And how can I monetize it? It's impossible. Like, I can't really tell them, if you pay me $100 and I will make your rig. Like,
yeah.
You could though. You could offer that.
Yeah.
You could probably say, because you have a reputation and you have experience with gear, you could probably say, hey, here's a website. I can do all the rig thing for you. Just wire me $200 and I'll have it done for you by the end of the week. You probably could do that.
Good idea.
And you could also take the concept of the question and turn it into a video that would be interesting. Let's say someone says, my budget's $500. What would you buy?
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, right now, if I had just $500 for amps and pedals and cables and stuff, let's see. And you could make a video about that. And you would show like what gear you would have and why you would make that decision. And maybe whenever you get that question in the future, you can just send them back to this video. What amp do you recommend under $500? I made a video on that. Here it is. That's the answer to your question. And that could also maybe be one of those videos where you could like just borrow the stuff without having like a sponsor. So that way you kind of build that trust. Like you didn't get any of the gear for free. You just like really went out, borrowed some stuff. And you're like, this is what I would do with my knowledge currently of the guitar industry and the value of stuff. This is what I would buy. I actually thought about doing that some time back, but I don't make enough money from the channel. Like I can buy guitar strings at the end of the year with the money I make on AdSense, but I can't go out and buy a rig. Like forget about it. So, but I mean, sometimes I try to see opportunities from questions, especially if they keep like they're reoccurring questions. Like what tubes would you put in this amp? I don't know, just buy them. But it's like, okay, I don't like the speaker. I want to keep the amp, but what speaker would you go for? What style of music do you play? And sometimes that like just sparks an idea. You're like, okay, so you're playing a Vox AC15 and you want to play death metal. Can the Vox AC15 do death metal? Well, let's go and see. So then I see like an opportunity there with a simple question. And I'm actually working on that video right now, so nobody steal my idea, please. So I'm gonna like have this little AC15. I'm gonna be like, yeah, can it do death metal? And I'm gonna have like choice pedals, and I'm gonna give it a shot. And people can say like, it sounds like shit, dude. It doesn't sound authentic. Oh, well then what is the key to death metal? Is it like a 50 watt amp, 100 watt amp? Does it have to be a Marshall or Angle? And, that can sometimes lead to a new series that you can work on. It's like the authenticity of the tone that you want. Where is it? Is it in how much money you spend? Is it in the specific gear that you buy?
Yeah.
Can you only do like gent or deathcore with like, I don't know, like Seymour Duncan blackouts or EMG 81s? Or can you do it with a Telecaster? And then people go, this is fucking stupid. Yeah, but you still clicked on the video, didn't you?
Yeah.
No? It's
Yeah, it's funny. It's people's expectations are always so they're very unique, and B, they're so far away from what you're willing to actually put into. It's like you already put a lot of work into a specific video or in a specific topic or something, and you're like, you did so much, and then people expect something vastly different or vastly like superior from you. It seems like they always expect you to be 10 times as good as them. They wouldn't be able to even cross the bar towards you. But you said that you are not so much into guitar gear anymore. You're less interested.
Yeah, like that is partly true, at least. Maybe new guitar gear. I used to be more stoked on like everything that came out, but I'm still. It sounds like I'm not interested at all, and that is not true. I'm still
no.
like. Yeah, but I think it comes off like that a bit when I say it, that I'm just like tired of everything. But I think maybe now I'm more interested in specific gear, and that can be old gear, it can be new gear that other people are not that interested in. It can be just a thing that no one really cares about, like a AB splitter that I'm using every day in my studio, that I find that more interesting than a $1,000 pickup set from
set.
Well, I knew a guy that was going to send you a set, but it's going to be like that, Eirik.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, the thought behind this question obviously was like, so since NAMM is around the corner and like there's so much in quotes new stuff coming out, lots of it is like, to me it's kind of refurbished stuff. If Fender comes out with new guitars, then it's stuff that they saw that seems to be resonating with people, and now they're just coming out with the Squier version of it. Or Ibanez coming out with new guitars. Yeah, they're changing the color palette every year, and they're adding new colors. That seems to be like Ibanez's game for a couple of years now, apart from a few models. But like, what was the last piece of new gear that came out that you were really excited about, and maybe you actually got one?
Ooh, that's a really good question. The stuff that I've accepted on my channel for reviews, that's usually stuff that I'm stoked on, but I haven't bought it. It's still a part of a deal, sort of. So I might be a bit biased there. Actually, the new Kemper is probably a thing that I will buy.
The small one.
Yeah. I'm super late to the Kemper party. Like I got one last year. I did try one when they came out many years ago. I was working in a guitar store. I didn't have an opinion about it then, but I was into amps, so why get a Kemper? But I got into Kempers last year because I was reviewing the Tonex software, where you can do basically the same thing, and that sounded really good. And I have a lot of old amps, and I thought I just want a hardware version of this, and that was the Kemper then. That was before the Tonex pedal. So I got a Kemper, and I've been really into Kempers after that. And the new one, the small one, seems great. So that's probably a thing that I will get, and that seemed really cool. Other than that, I'm not sure. I've been getting more like outboard stuff, which isn't directly connected to guitars. Like I could use those for other things as well, and mics and stuff like that. The last pedal was the new Kernum Moho Fuzz, which is really good. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Kernum, but it's a French company, yeah. So they did a overdrive distortion last year, and they did a fuzz now, and it's fantastic.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, but I was wondering about this thing that there was a pretty huge hype around it because they crowdfunded the whole thing in the first place. Like really? I think the overdrive. Yeah, I think the overdrive was actually crowdfunded, and it was very successful for being a guitar pedal that's crowdfunded. Obviously, it's not going to make millions in crowdfunding, but it definitely went very well as far as the funding goes. And then from there on, obviously, it gained the interest of distributors and stores, and then at some point, Enderton's had it and whatnot. So I think it was quite interesting how that turned out for them. And regarding the Kemper, the small Kemper, we like 2 weeks ago we talked about that in the podcast as well, and we were told by Richard that most people that he knows, they say that the Tonex is still they said it's unbelievably good. I haven't tried it myself, but they say that in terms of like what the Kemper does and what the Kemper's known for, and what the Tonex does, the Tonex is like that little extra bit better or more realistic or more detailed or however you want to call it. Was that your experience as well?
No, I don't think so. But it's really difficult to do a good A/B test.
Okay.
But I was surprised about the Tonex software. It sounds amazing, and the pedal sounds the same, so that one is great as well. But it is so difficult to profile, or it's not called profiling when it's with the Tonex. It's called the modeling or capturing. That is so difficult compared to the Kemper. I do sell some Kemper profiles, and I wanted to sell Tonex captures as well, but it's so difficult to make them compared to the Kemper. So I haven't invested any more time with the Tonex. I just sold my Tonex pedal actually. So I haven't really tried it that much, but I've heard some different experiences. I follow Tone Junkie profile on YouTube. He's like one of the biggest when it comes to making good Kemper profiles. And he's doing Tonex, he's doing the other ones. I don't remember. XFX. Yeah. And he says that like still he thinks Kemper is like the best thing.
Okay.
And I haven't really tried the other stuff as much, and I haven't tried Tonex that much. But to me, I think I agree with him. But that's also a bit because I find the whole hardware, the process of profiling a lot easier on the Kemper, which is kind of important as well.
Yeah, it's mere seconds with the Kemper. You get the beeps and boops, and that's it. It's done. It's ready to go, and you can refine it. You can do everything. From what I can tell with the videos I've seen about the Tonex, it's a much longer process to do that. So it's like here I live in an apartment and I have neighbors. So if I have this like the Kemper making like really loud noise, but for like 30 seconds at a time, my neighbors are not going to complain. But if it takes a half hour,
Yeah.
I might get a knock at the door. So I think like if they could refine that with the Tone X, just make the process a little shorter, perhaps it's going to be able to compete with the Kemper. Because like I said, the Kemper here, it could be like 11 in the morning. I'm going to stick a microphone in front of the cab. I set this guy up and it's like really loud for 30 seconds. That is
Yeah.
it. My profile's done.
Yeah.
You know?
And usually when I do the packs that I'm selling, it's probably around 10 or 15 profiles with different pedals and different mics and stuff. You're able to do that in half a day with the Kemper.
Yep.
That with a Tone X would be 2 days, probably.
Wow.
That's a huge
okay.
difference. And my biggest issue with capturing with the Tone X is the way you set it up, and you have to route the signal through something. And like the last time I tried to do it, I wasn't able to do it. I wasn't able to get the right signal back to the amp. I am a bit stupid, which explains part of it, but it should be easier. And with the Kemper, it is very easy.
Yeah, it's been streamlined. Have you experimented, because you say you have your own packs, have you experimented with the liquid profile, which is a new feature with the Kemper? Have you tried that out?
No, not yet. And I think part of that reason is because like the amps that I profile, they are not on there, to say it carefully.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
Since I do like old Ampegs and old PV transistor amps. But you can still use the liquid part for the things that I do, but it would be like a Marshall voicing with an Ampeg.
Okay.
So yeah. And I don't think they will ever put any of my amps into the liquid thing, the list there. So
Okay.
yeah, I haven't dug too deep into it.
Now
yet, at least.
I kind of understand what this liquid profiling is about. So Kemper actually needs to implement that type of amp into the whole firmware in order to be able to have the liquid profiling, because that the liquid profiling, so same as you, like 10 years ago or something around 10 years ago, when the first Kemper came out, the guys from Kemper came to the shop where I was working, and they were like, hey, we have this thing, would you like to test it? And then we tested it and we were like, okay, yeah, interesting. Hey, you can have this one for like 3 months, like to check it out. So I took it home. I was like, okay, I kind of studied it. And then I was like, okay, cool, let's go to the session room. We had a connected studio with the session room. And let's profile my amps, but let's do it properly, like with a good mic preamp, with a good mic and everything. And I did that. And I did my VH4, and we did an old Engel that sounded really good, and an old Marshall. And then I took those back into my home studio. I was like, that's cool. But then it sounded kind of boomy, and I was turning the bass, and I was like, okay, that doesn't sound right. That is not the bass of my Plexi. And that was not the bass of my VH4 and whatnot. So that was always the thing that kind of turned me off when it comes to the Kemper, because if you stick with the profile as it is, it would sound great. As soon as you have to adapt things, it was just made up. It didn't exist, you know?
Yeah. But do you think they have improved that even before the liquid profiles?
No. I
No,
don't.
okay.
I don't think so. At least I didn't. Well, if they did, I didn't get the info. But apparently now with this liquid profiling, where they implemented some of those basic models into the firmware and you apply it, apparently there is some more reality to what's happening when you actually need to turn the knobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the EQ is set with the Kemper, so I might be talking out of my ass here. I don't really know, but I get the impression that the EQ section is post the profile, so that's why you get like really boomy or really bright. And my understanding is that the liquid profile is supposed to act more like what the EQ would react like in the amplifier. That's been my understanding so far. So that's probably where you're saying, Frank, that, it's like you profile your amp, and the moment you want to EQ a bit, it doesn't react the same way because it's a static, if you want, sonic representation of whatever you recorded. So if there was already a lot of low end and you're amplifying it, it just gets boomy. It doesn't react like an amp that has an EQ section, and it gets more gainy because you're putting more frequency through the input of the amplifier, your post, the amplifier. So that might be like one of the downfalls, or the pit, if you will, with profiling. But if you can nail, excuse me, if you can nail that sound to begin with, like get like the perfect mix ready sound, and you don't have to touch the EQ, then it's cool. And that's where something like the Kemper player is great, because if your sound is dialed in and all you're dealing with is presets, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I'd be curious to try that as well.
Yeah, I still do a lot of tweaking on the EQ on my profiles, and I have success with that. But I haven't been able to I don't have a control room and a live room. So it's harder for me to compare like directly how my amp sounds through everything, and when I turn the EQ on my amp, it is probably different. But still, I'm tweaking a lot on my profiles from song to song, and I'm having good results with that. But I bet it's even better with the liquid profiles.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you look at the moving away a little bit from gear, although I have a last question. You said that nowadays you're like more excited about that you purchase a lot of outboard gear, which I find to be really interesting, because I see that there is a tendency for people to work in the box, and work with stuff that the computer provides, or they have some kind of external DSP solution, and you say that you like to work with outboard gear. Anything in particular that you're looking for? Is it EQs? Is it compressors? What kind of stuff are you like hunting?
I think the biggest reason to why I need to have it here, like physically, is because of the Kemper process. I don't want to talk too much about the Kemper. I'm really hooked on that. Currently,
no worries. It's all good.
But I need to have it like in the chain. So I guess I could do some routing and using plugins and different stuff, but it's just more easier and more convenient to having it right in front of me in the chain. And I'm getting a bigger fan of just like having a completed guitar signal going into my DAW.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not very nostalgic when it comes to gear. I just want it to be easy, and for some reason that has been the way for me. I don't have a lot of outboard gear at all. I have a like combined preamp and EQ, and I'm looking into getting probably a compressor as well. So yeah, it's mostly because of the Kemper thing. When I do profiles, I need to have a like perfect signal going back to my Kemper. But also when I do record with amps, I just like to dial in the tone as close to the end result as possible, and don't use too many plugins. I don't have anything against plugins. I've learned everything with using plugins. I guess it's maybe a challenge for me to see how close I can get to the end result of just like doing everything with my EQ and my preamp and mic placement and stuff like that.
Yeah, same here. I'm also trying to be as close as possible to the sound that how I want it to sound like, and then maybe I use plugins to make the sound sit well in the mix. but I wouldn't like kind of go and I used to be a fan of reamping. I'm not so much these days. These days, I'd rather be on spot with the sound and be happy with it, and just make sure it sits well within the mix of things, but not like sit there and like, oh, now I have 20 cabinets I can choose from and 120 mics. And I'm like, I'm gonna sit here for 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we talked last week about because Andy mentioned that you almost have to be ADHD to do YouTube because you have to know a bunch of stuff and you have to be able to dive into subjects.
Yeah.
And I found that the issue that you have when it comes to recording is option paralysis.
Yeah.
You have too many EQs, too many cabinets. So what I've done just to stop the ADHD thing from driving me completely bonkers is I streamline my workflow so I know what I have to put on. So I don't put on any like fancy EQ or anything. I just make sure that all my videos meet the requirement for YouTube, which is I think is like minus 14 LUFS for the range that they want. So I just make sure I have a limiter on there. There's nothing else. And a lot of people complain about like not putting too many plugins just to enhance the sound. And I find that the more I want to enhance the sound, the more I fuck it up. So I just don't put them on anymore. Yeah. So I trust my ears. I just sometimes I put a microphone in front of the amplifier, and I know where it's going to sound best because I've done it like 100 times. So now I trust the process. And just like you, Frank, I don't do any more reamping. I still have reamp box and DI boxes, and I haven't used them in years. Yeah. Just because it's far too much work, I remember one of the first videos I did, I had 2 cabs. I couldn't decide between the 2 cabs. I had like 4 microphones. I couldn't decide between the microphones. So now I'm like fucking around with the different mics, and now they're out of phase because I didn't know too much about like phase correlation between the microphones. And I'm like, oh my God, this sounds like crap. So I had to re-record everything with the 2 mics, and I was hell-bent on using 2 mics. But I didn't know like that I could use a white noise, not white noise, but pink noise to go through the amp and find the phase cancellation. So all the experience that I accumulated has brought me to like, keep it simple, stupid. KISS. Yeah. That's been my motto now for a few years. Yeah. Don't overthink it. Try to get as raw a sound as you can get. And I still get compliments on the sound, which is good. But sometimes I get people that say, I don't know, man, my amp doesn't sound like that. Your amp in your room, of course, will not sound the same. It's not the same room, right? And it's not under the microscope with a microphone either. No. So mic placement, a lot of people don't think about it, and I'm going to get nerdy here, but your microphone is the first EQ that you introduce to your whole signal chain. Yeah. And a lot of times when we start out, we just think that this just captures sound. But it doesn't just capture sound. It captures sound with a spectrum of frequencies that it enhances and scoops, and it band passes sometimes. Yes. So when you start to learn that about microphones, you're like, oh shit, should I get like a Royer 121 so I get like the most high fidelity sound, or an MD 421? Like, where do I put my money? And here I am still just using a short SM57 in front of the cabinet, and I don't overthink it. Like, I will not buy a $10,000 microphone to make YouTube videos. I will not do that.
Yeah. That being said, the Royer R121 is definitely a great mic for amplifiers. Used it numerous times, and I think that one blended with an SM57 is my all-time favorite combination when able to use 2 mics without fucking things up. So
yeah, agree.
R121.
I got since I can't afford the Royer R121, I got this instead, Super Lux. It's like I think $129. It's a ribbon microphone. So I was like, okay, I can't afford like to spend that much money on another microphone. So I gave this one a shot, and I wasn't too sure. I was like, cheap microphones, is it kind of like cheap pedals? Does cheap equate to like really poor sound quality? No. And turns out this microphone is actually really good. It's dark like a ribbon microphone should be, and it pairs well with the SM57. So I'm having fun with it. I don't have to overspend on stuff just to get quality. And I think that's the other point too with gear is that we're at a point where you can get like a ribbon mic for $129, where before you couldn't do that.
No.
They were really expensive. They came with their own preamps, and you had to be sure not to turn on phantom power or you could blow up the microphone.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's like this mic I just showed you works with phantom power.
Yeah.
It's like, don't have to worry about it. Oh, yeah, gear. Have too much.
No, you can never have too much.
Should say that to my wife.
Yeah. one question away from gear. What kind of music? If you're enjoying music these days, if you're listening to stuff, what kind of music are you enjoying these days?
I need to have a look on Napster. I mean Spotify.
Napstify.
Napstify. I've been listening to a lot of Turnstile lately.
Okay.
Newer band. I discovered them a couple of years ago. That's a band that I think everyone should check out. Young band from Baltimore, punk. It's one of those bands that I think they're just as good as the bands were back when I was more into music.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, it's a lot of recycled stuff. I do listen to Queens of the Stone Age still a lot. They're my favorite band. Radiohead.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you heard of them. And this is a band that I listened a lot to. And You Will Know Us by The Trail of Dead.
Yeah, good. That's a really good band.
Yeah, I almost like. I usually go a couple of years not listening to them, forgetting about their existence, and then I rediscover them. So I've been listening to them a lot lately.
Yeah,
yeah, they're like them and Queens of the Stone Age, really important bands to me because they're really good at making guitar music still.
Yes.
Without being like too attached to the 90s or 80s or like early 2000s. They're still doing kind of new stuff. But with Queens of the Stone Age, I'm listening mostly to the older stuff. I'm not that into the newer albums, sadly. I wish I liked them better.
That would have been that would have been my question, because same as you, I like the old stuff. I think that Songs for the Deaf is still one of the best albums they did. Obviously, the albums before that as well. But I've been listening a lot to the latest album, and not only because my son likes them in the car, and then he's quiet and he's banging his head and he likes it. But what I found out is that there are a couple of songs where I thought Josh Homme was actually sounding more like David Bowie than himself, which is interesting.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like with the first couple of singles, I thought this is going to be a great album, and there are some songs on there that I like. But I don't know if it's me or if it's the band. I think it's close to impossible to make 8 good albums. I don't think that's possible. Or at least for one person to like all albums from a band. I don't think there's any band where I just like everything.
So difficult.
Yeah, so I don't really blame them for it. They're still doing their thing, but they're doing it in a slightly different way that I'm into. Yeah. So I like initially wanted to make a video about it, and almost like a ranty video, but like then that's not a
Can
good
of
thing.
worms,
Like, I'm just a fan. They don't owe me anything. They're just doing their thing, and if I'm not that into it, it's fine. But I've been asked a lot about it because I've done so many like Queens of the Stone Age related videos on my channel. I get asked a ton about like, do you like the new album? And I wanted to do a video on it, and I didn't, and I'm glad that I did not.
Yeah.
I have an idea though for you, Eirik. How about you do a video where you compare the sound from previous albums with the new guitar tone from the new albums, where you criticize the guitar tone. You say, hey, this was like this, and now it's like that. And then you can ask your audience, what do you think? Do you think the sound is the same, or do you prefer the new one or the old one?
Yeah.
So you can kind of get to address that, but through guitar.
Yeah.
Right? It's like before, it seemed to me like they were more innovative about their approach to guitar tone and what mics they choose and what amps they were choosing and stuff like that. And now maybe it's a little more polished and it sounds less refined and less experimental. Just give an example here, but that could be a fun video.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I wouldn't say that it's more polished. I think they're going in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
By making it even more weird, like miking a small amp from like in the completely different end of the room, like really weird miking techniques. So I'm almost thinking that the older tones are more like traditional in some sort of way, and that they're stretching it a bit too far with the newer stuff. But that's indeed a very good idea for a
I want you to
video.
make it.
Yeah, and I can like sneak in some ranting about the new stuff without.
Yeah, it's just these little clips that are like 10 seconds, and then you get back to the guitar playing. People, what the hell was that?
Sounds like good stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
We usually towards the end of every podcast we do the rapid fire question game, which is Jonathan's domain. So I'm gonna have Jonathan take over for a round of funny questions that you're gonna have to try to answer as best as possible.
Oh yeah, cool. I'm.
It's actually my only contribution to the podcast.
No.
No.
No, I'm just kidding. All right. So, Eirik, I'm keeping it simple, okay? Because sometimes, like, I've seen people ask, like, what's your favorite 30 guitar pedals? And the person's like, what? So I'm keeping it at 3, okay? So 3, usually the stream of mind can kind of follow along. So out of all the amps that you own right now, what are your top 3 amplifiers?
I would say the Ampeg VT40, which is a Queens of the Stone Age amp. I don't use it the same way that they do, so I dare to put it on my list. I think I've been able to make it a tiny bit myself. So definitely the VT40. I would say a deluxe reverb Fender.
Nice.
That's usually the thing that I put on the list when I was touring. I felt really home with that. And for the last thing, my Silvertone 1483.
You have an original one.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
nice.
That was another thing that I was chasing because of Jack White from the White Stripes. He plays a 1484, like the bigger one. But mine is originally a bass amp, but it's fantastic on guitar. It's incredible. It is really hard to deal with. I think I've had it like serviced at least a couple of times. I've spent a lot of money on that amp. It's not made to last, but when you have it working, it is amazing. So that's definitely there on my list as well.
Very interesting choice. Now, your top 3 pedals. I know you own an original Klon, so I'm curious to see if it's going to make your list or not. So what are your top 3 pedals?
I think I'm putting that on there because just because the whole thing about Klons, like I feel that I did a good investment. I made so many videos with it. It sounds good for certain things. I wouldn't use it like as my daily overdrive pedal, but for certain things, it's really good. So that's on there. And I really like the Boss SD1.
Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Cool.
that was like the first pedal that I got. Or I think I got the DS1 before that, and I didn't like that one. So I got the SD1. And I still like that because it compresses the sound so much. I just like the character that it adds. It has some issues, definitely, but it's still a good pedal. And I think the last one I would say probably a Memory Man Electro Harmonics. That's like, you can just turn that on and it has a vibe that I'm really into.
Yeah.
I don't have one at the moment, but I think I need to get one again. Yep.
Yeah, and that could make for a cool video too. Okay, so I know you have more than one guitar. So what are your top 3 guitars?
I would say right now it's my Gibson Explorer for the more heavy stuff. I was just super lucky with that one. Found it on Facebook Marketplace. Pretty cheap. That one is amazing. And then my Pine Home S, what is it called again? It's a Strat. It's a Strat replica. I made a video of that with the guy building it. I was sort of like documenting the whole process. I've never been that into Strats, but that one is just amazing. Sorry. And my last one is my Fano PX6. That's like the best guitar that I have. I started my YouTube channel with that guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I when I started to follow you, I'm trying to remember. I think it was like 2012, 13, something like that. I remember you were playing that guitar almost like exclusively for just about every video you did. And I didn't know the brand at the time. So I was like, what guitar is that? Does it have gold foil pickups in there?
No, it's Firebird style pickups.
Firebird, that's right.
A lot of people mistake them for mini humbuckers. I thought they were mini humbuckers for many years as well, but there's a difference. Yeah.
So my next question for you, I know you're a big fan of Queen of the Stone Age. What are your top 3 songs?
Ooh. Millionaire from Songs for the Deaf. Yeah. That's a banger.
Yeah, it's a total banger.
And I Appear Missing and First It Giveth.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. First It Giveth is another one of those bangers. Every time that would run in the there was this like sort of like rock metal discotheque that I would go 20,
rock metal
20
discotheque. That's
yeah, exactly. So here in my hometown, we have this venue called the Live Music Hall, which is usually a concert venue, but they also host parties in there. And on Fridays, you would have like a sort of 80s themed party where like 80s music was on. And on Saturday, you would have an event that was called Rock Garden. And in Rock Garden, they would have the starts at 10, but nobody goes there at 10, obviously. So like you enter at 12 and you're blasted away because like Korn or Slipknot was playing, or like really like heavy stuff. But they were playing everything, from Pearl Jam to Opeth, pretty much. And yeah, that's where it's going. And every time First It Giveth was on, I would storm the dance floor and like go crazy because it was like it's such an amazing song to move weird to that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so my last question for you,
Yeah.
Eirik. This is the infamous desert island question. So let's not go in the weeds of if there's electricity and all that. It's more of like, what's your top, like, let's say 1 amp, 1 guitar, and a small board. You could have as many pedals as you want on there. What would you gig with for your own pleasure? What would be the amp, the guitar, and the pedals?
I would probably do the Fano PX6 as my guitar, and maybe I would just like skip the pedal board, because I could play like I could just turn up the amp, and I would just enjoy that, and maybe the silver tone then. I would need to bring a tuner, by the way. I'm just horrible at tuning by ear, so a small pedal board with a tuner, and maybe a Klon to push the amp a bit. But yeah, I would keep it pretty like minimal on the pedal board, I think, and just like be able to play loud. Yeah. Maybe that's a bit boring,
Nice.
but yeah, I think that's what I would go for.
No, it's actually very, very telling, because I do this now every time we have a guest. I ask them about gear, and it's really fascinating to see a more pragmatic approach to the gear. Like, it just tells you that if you had no choice, you know exactly what you would limit down to. If you were to ask me this question right now, today I would give you an answer that tomorrow would be completely different. So today, maybe I would plug into the amp I have right here beside me, and that would be my desert island amp. But then I'd be screwed, because then I would go on the island and go, why didn't I choose the Vox AC50? Like, I just can't make up my mind, and I really enjoy the fact that some of you guys come on here and you know exactly what you would play. You're like, that amp, that guitar, those pedals or no pedals. I just can't make up my mind on these questions. That's why I asked them. Like, if you were to ask me that, I wouldn't know what to answer you. I really wouldn't.
And you know,
Too much
when
gear,
I was touring, I didn't tour a lot, but I did tour a bit. Like, in preparation for the tours, when I didn't do much, I made like massive pedal boards. Then I went on tour and I just like removed pedals, and I ended up having a really simple pedal board at the end of each tour. Then I got back home and I started making big pedal boards again. But like when touring, I just like tore everything off, and I had a tuner and a delay and an overdrive and maybe a reverb, and that was it. Even though I wanted to have more stuff on there, I just like I didn't use it, or it didn't work. So I always like picked off stuff and had a really small board. So I think that's where I'm liking stuff, actually.
Yeah, it's
Very interesting.
It's interesting you say that. So I here in my hometown there are a couple of like monthly like jam sessions where I usually go to and hang out and play with other people. And obviously there's not much time to do lots of sound checking and stuff. One like jam kind of group goes off and you go on and you have to start pretty much right away.
Yeah.
So but in order to be happy with the stuff that's there, I take a small board that's battery powered, so I don't have to plug into any outlets or something. So
Smart.
like small board with a there's a Joyo PB05, something like that, where there's a battery in there that can hold up to 6 hours or something. And then
Wow.
I'm obviously limited to, because it's a small board, to 2 or 3 pedals. And yeah, sometimes I swap them, but usually it stays the same. It's like it's an overdrive, it's a boost, and it's something to do some funky modulation stuff. And I think if I was like forced to tour with that, I'll be totally fine. You can put that in front of every amplifier and get the sound that you're happy with.
Yeah.
So sometimes sometimes Yngwie Malmsteen isn't right. Sometimes less is actually more, to be honest.
No, more is more.
More is more. Where's the logic?
I think this conversation has like inspired a new idea. I'm gonna have to expand on it, but like since I have like 200 pedals, I have, I don't know, close to 10 amps at this point and 7 guitars. What would I do if I had to choose? Like, let's say economic times are here and I have to sell. Would I sell the expensive stuff so I can recoup some money, or would I keep the expensive stuff? Like, I'm trying to see like the consumer mindset, which I've never questioned in myself before. But hearing you guys like being able to streamline everything down to like really basic elements makes me wonder, am I overthinking the gear? Could I simplify it? Could I do YouTube videos with just like 5 pedals back there and I just grab what I need? Because I always think that I need more. I'm like, what if I do a video on this? Then I'm not going to have that pedal and I'm going to be screwed. I'm going to have to buy it. Do I really need to be that authentic and hoard all this stuff just in order to make videos that I might get like 100 views on?
Yeah.
Like, see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the preparedness that I want in order to make the content makes me consume way more gear than I actually need. So I don't know. I'm going to let this one simmer, but maybe I'm going to have to make a video where it's like, what do I do if I want to simplify this? Do I go digital? Like, do I just keep the HX Stomp or the Kemper? Or do I keep analog? Like, where's my preference? Because I got a bit of everything. And I think I'm probably being an idiot here and I got too much gear. So
I think
my wife is right.
Oh, shit.
I think there's like,
God damn it.
I've sold a lot of gear up and through the years, and I think there's one thing that I miss that I regret selling, and just like one thing. So I guess that I could do without a lot of stuff that I have.
What did you regret
Same
selling?
for me.
It was one of those big box Origin Effects Cali 76 compressor pedals. With the like Lundal transformers.
Yeah.
They're, like they are super expensive now, and it was really, really good. So yeah, I wish I had that one still.
Yeah,
but that's
I hear you.
The only thing really.
Yeah, it's funny that I think I also, just from this conversation, I also just had a new funky idea, because since we talked about the Klon Centaur that you own and whatnot, I actually have up here in this register, I actually have 2,000 Klon Centaur specific diodes. So
really,
yeah, exactly. I got them from a guy locally, some like old like Russian engineer who was getting rid of all the stuff in his workshop, and I bought transistors from him, and they are like, they're mint in the box, by the way. And so the original like magic diodes in the Klon Centaur were all measured to be exactly 0.35 volts forward voltage, and that's what these are. They're like, all of them, they're like matched and measured to be 0.35 volts, and they're germanium. So
cool. Is that the 1NE34 diode?
yeah, the one that's obviously the international name for that diode. And then the Russians, they have a couple of, they essentially made the same diode, but they had like different names for different models. So usually the D9B is like the closest, or the D9E is like the closest to the one that you just mentioned, the 34. Yeah. But it's not so much about which one of the variants you get. It's about how much forward voltage they actually produce, or where they cap it, where the clipping actually takes place. And that was by total accident. It was like, oh, cool, this guy has diodes, and I was using them for my own pedals as well. Some of the others that he has, and and then he said, oh, I have these two. They're like still mint in the box, and they're like all of them, they're like measured, so you don't have to measure them. I was like, really, what are they measured to? 0.35 volts. I was like, oh, how much you want for those? And I bought them for a really good course. So since each Klon has 2 of those, and I have 2,000, I can make 1,000 Klons.
Right. I think I actually have some D9Es as well in my drawer. Yeah, I haven't measured them though.
You should.
Yeah, I'm not cool like you guys. All I have is like a shit ton of guitar picks. Got a lot of them. They're not in demand though.
Awesome.
Oh my god. Yeah. You should definitely, Frank, make a limited run like Klon style pedal. I'm sure if you can think up a marketing scheme around it that would like really entice people, I'm sure people would go for it, because we talked about the hype around the germanium tumnus.
Tumnus, yeah.
And and even the not a Klon. I was like, people went ape shit over that one. So I think there's still a really high demand for like Klon style pedals.
Yeah,
I think that would be probably.
Yeah, I'm currently talking to a guy who makes these Klon style enclosures, but smaller. So he makes them in 3 different sizes, because I have original sized enclosure as well, and it's so huge, and there's so much space, and there's unnecessary, and people like to be like light and compact and whatnot. So maybe I'll make a mini version with some modifications or something,
or stackable Klons, 2 Klons in one box.
Yeah,
or something like that.
That would be cool.
But with the mini enclosures, they look like the original, but smaller.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. That's the thing that I haven't seen before.
Yeah, that they look really good. And when I build a Klon, what I usually do is I separate the gain portions, because the original Klon has like this dual potentiometer that the more gain you add, the more direct signal you add, so you maintain the clarity. And what I do is I separate those, so you can blend in purely dirty gain and clean gain. And I usually do a gain mod as well to get it up to like almost fuzzy territory, just as an option, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, maybe I'll do a limited run. Let's see. One little housekeeping thing before we close this down. We still have our giveaway running. If as soon as we reach 250 subscribers, we are going to give away a Jupiter Effects Wallow in limited edition pink. So for those of you who are listening and haven't subscribed yet, you could still do that. And next week's episode is going to launch a little bit earlier. We usually launch every episode Thursday, 10 a.m. Central European time, but due to NAMM, this is going to be launched maybe a day or 2 days earlier. We want to be as close to the actual event. But other than that, the only thing that remains for me is to say thank you, Eirik. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. It was really entertaining. I've learned a lot, and kind of got some insight into your head and your way of doing things. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was really fun.
Right. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for listening, and talk to you in the next episode. Bye.
Goodbye.
Cheers.